benefits for people who are manufacturing with better practices, and there should be taxes for certain things which are just not acceptable because they have reached the brink of being non-existent in the years to come. 20 years later, the world is not going to look the same for our children. So this has to come to a stop, and certain things have to, with or without the dialogue of I was brought up in such a way, so I need to see more, it has to stop. People will always believe in beauty. People will always live parallel lives for the sake of beauty, for the sake of art, isn't it? And that is where we are relevant. A growth of understanding, learning, talking, and using sustainability as a tool for my brand in fashion.
Right. So, and I think this is the crux of the whole conversation. I feel that the word sustainability now is balancing on that precipice in the world of social media, especially, where every brand has to sort of take a decision where they want to talk more about it or just sort of silently practice it. And if they are silently practicing, is how much should they be talking about it, and in what way should they be talking about it? That becomes very, very important as well, because as important a word as sustainability is, it is also, I feel, in recent times become extremely precarious and very, very abused and very sort of its value has been taken away by a lot of noise that's created around it. So for me, sustainability sort of rests in its importance as the life breath of any sort of process of production. It's there. It's the life breath of it, and I call it the life breath because it should be, according to me, as unthinking and mindless as involuntary as drawing breaths to continue living. I have discovered that sustainability is a spectrum, and that 100% sustainability is not something that's easily achievable, or in fact even desirable at some points, because it's a very layered and complex aspiration to have. So while one may, let's say, and it depends on the level of designer or a brand that you are. So while we see today that international brands that are powerhouses and iconic brands, they are now investing in agriculture, and they are directly working with the farmers who are producing the wool or the silk or the cotton or whatever materials they need, and how they are working directly with those farmers to make sure that there is a crop rotation, and then it's a sustainable farming strategy that brings them the raw materials to weave their fabrics. Many designers and many young brands may not have that reach, but is there a way for them to be sustainable without having that privilege or having that economic clout and power? How can they do that? Those are very interesting questions to me. For me, even a brand that's working with a craft cluster or working with a certain set of artisans and is able to provide employment is being sustainable in an ethical way, let's say. Or a brand that's ensuring that a craft sort of continues reinventing and reviving itself. And I hate the word revival because it implies that craft was at death's door. But there is reinvention to be done. There is design intervention to be done. And you do a lot of that. So sustainability for me comes as a spectrum in which everybody can participate to the best of their abilities at whatever level they are. And as they grow, they can continue to invest in that idea as a concept. And I want to hear how you, Rina, how you sort of found your way around the various levels of sustainability that you built in your work.
So like I said, that there is no way now in today's world and time and the age that we are now building brands and doing a certain kind of whatever ethical, who makes my clothes kind of slogans we are using, we see every day on the internet. while it's nice to have popularity of a certain point of view, because I think more noise is better than no noise. So it's good. All the kind of action and inaction and whatever is happening around the word sustainability, it's good only. I think it is leading the conversation in a direction. Having said that, I think that it really needs a critical understanding from the brand's point of view. So we say that the consumer has to be involved. We say that it has to be, like you're saying, that everybody doing their bit from whatever level they exist at is a good idea. But I think brands carry more responsibility than just making noise and just using it, not irresponsibly, but I would say that in the flow, because it is the catchword. And so much of the work that we do is about in the movement. Like fashion is all about order of the day. So what's happening now, the trend, the talk, anything that's going to get attention. So marketing strategies across the world, whether it was the fashion shows, whether it was larger than life shows, whether it was getting real people to walk the ramp, talking about their stories, how Marni has changed its concept and its production around how they are campaigning now. So relevant for our times, I feel. So fashion is really about order of the day. So there is no way we can bypass this conversation of sustainability, because we are talking about the environment in the parliaments across the world. And when we are talking about that across the world, we are talking about real issues. And those real issues, fashion becomes almost like a non-eligible entry, in those. I've had some very serious talks with some really serious people, TED Talks at, some very serious institutes. And I just find myself like, losing my voice. Like, what do I say? What do I say that is relevant in this crowd? We just can't live the world like, okay, we are here to save the world and die. We have to add more meaning to it, isn't it? We want to make it more beautiful. We want to make it romantic. We want to make it worth living for a lot of people who don't live their lives with hopes. And therefore, we found fashion to be relevant in the times when it would have been literally dying, whether it was after the World War, whether it was at the time when the pandemic is hitting the world. It's just that the narrative that we use changes. How we start talking about it changes. So yes, sustainability is extremely relevant. We have to talk about it. We have to make more noise perhaps than the amount of sense that noise makes in today's time. It's fine. Brands that are eligible, brands that are not eligible, brands that are educated, and brands that are not extremely ethical and aware about it are also talking about sustainability, more from the marketing point of view. But today I feel the more the merrier. At least we have a standpoint in fashion. At least we put our foot forcefully in the door. Instead, I would say that we have opened the door today. We have opened. Sustainability is here to stay. The dialogue of sustainability in fashion is here to stay. Let's make it more fashion. Let's make it more arts. Let's make it more relevant. How I've changed over the years now, Varun, let me say this, that if we talk about sustainability from a point of view of a brand sitting in Paris with a different ecosystem, what they see outside of the window, or what they see, the makers, the creators, what they see on their walk from work to home, from home to wherever, is so different from what I see every day when I see outside the window. It's so different from what my artisan or a weaver would see when they see outside their window, when they walk from home to work. What is sustainability? It means that one dialogue, that one point of view that is relevant to that man sitting in Paris is relevant to me, is relevant to my weaver. This is what binds us together. I think consistency of thought, like I have said this earlier, I think we were at a talk together where I was bringing this forward, and I said that this is what I've discovered and have tried to articulate for my brand. I feel consistency, consciously creating, and being more mindful, like being more conscious about what kind of designs I'm putting out. What is it about designing that I want to say is conscious? Like, so many people ask me organic hair, kapda, and then I have to talk against it and say that it's not organic. On the contrary, what I want to say is that it's made consciously, that I'm not putting a buckle or an embroidery there, which is going to shock you. It's going to arrest your attention. You will be taken in by that beauty, but it might not be relevant to you tomorrow. It's fine. There is nothing like who defines whether or not that buckle or that embroidery should be there. But for my brand, I define it. I want it to be so conscious that I want that piece to be there on the hangers whenever it is relevant in terms of colors or flavor or whatever. Consistency, I think that my dialogue about sustainability, about my people, about the kind of crafts I'm working closely with, it has to stay consistent. I can't work with certain crafts and craft techniques and forms today and not talk about it tomorrow because I don't see a way of fitting that in my brand language, you know. So it is a limitation, honestly, but I've decided that I'm going to work on it no matter how. Consistency, I think, is very important. Craft inclusive, because for an ecosystem like ours, there is no way we cannot include crafts if we talk about sustainability. So I think being craft inclusive is very important. So consistency, consciously, and craft inclusive is the way I define for my brand. World over, they talk about it in terms of financial, social, and environmental, all of which is important. But for me, I define it like this. Of course, being environmental friendly and taking care of the environment is a part of it, but that's not it. That's not the underline. So many processes. Like right now, I'm sitting and talking to you on the internet. There are two bulbs on my head. I'm sitting in an AC. So, you know, there are so many things in that sense. If I say that, well, I am not a 100% sustainable brand, I can say that very honestly today.
The economics is very much set because of market forces and because of, and there is a requirement in the industry for and on the consumer side for sustainability to become a absolutely easy to access part of our consuming cycle. Where can brands come in to make it more easily accessible, you know, sustainable, let's say sustainable products, and that goes into the culture building of sustainability as a culture that we inhabit, you know. So how can brands, and when I say brands, I don't mean brands such as yours, but I definitely do mean, let's say, bigger brands or even you know, retail aggregators, especially e-com that we've seen has been such a force even during the two waves of the pandemic in India. You know, e-com consumerism has skyrocketed during this time. What can they do? And it's not just about the production process. To me, that's also about the packaging process. It's also about the delivery process, because sustainability has a lot to do with what you receive as a package and what you throw away from that and what you retain. Or if you're, for example, if I order, let's say, 5 books to read, they're all coming in 5 different packages.
If sustainability is going to lead them to make more money, they are more than happy to do that. See, I've also worked with a really big, giant, huge brand across the world that supplies across the world. I realized that for them to change one process really brings about the amount of sustainability that they can add into the practice of their production, and the impact of that is going to be huge. You know, we have to be progressive. There is no way we can walk backwards and think that we will be able to change the mindset of people in terms of how to consume things, you know. So far as that really becomes easier and a convenient option for people to choose from the 5 choices that they have, everybody is going to incorporate it. If it is going to be, although I feel that, you know, mass production of sustainability is never an option. In the sense that but at the same time, if a consumer is told that you wash it by hand, don't put it in the washer, I don't know how many of them are really going to buy a product. You know, if you tell them don't use a detergent, and in fact, we would say that, you know, buy a natural soap, which is available on the website, I don't know how many of them are going to invest in that. There are so many other, like riders that come with making sustainability a choice. Like you were talking about food, lifestyle, in terms of a sustainable lifestyle choice. I personally feel that you cannot. So, for example, a lot of people go on a diet thinking that, you know, okay, I can eliminate this, but really, in the end, is it sustainable? It is not sustainable, and you end up really bouncing back from the diet and say that, okay, let me include, you know, 2 cheat meals in a month or in a week or something or the other, because it is not sustainable. Likewise, fashion sustainability, until unless it's going to become convenient, until unless it's going to be progressive, I don't think the consumer is ever going to buy it. So I personally feel that we have to indulge them in the world of beauty. We have to indulge them. We have to keep the dialogue relevant in terms of in terms of storytelling, in terms of the narrative, and make them a part of the process of creating, consuming, coming together of a like minded community that believes in living the life with certain choices. Post that, each one of us will have to carry the burden of whether the choice they are making is sustainable. We have seen a lot of things change in terms of how we started living, how we have imbibed the changes that are brought to us in our lifestyle by, accepting modernity or accepting to live more easy, in terms of everyday life. But how do we take it forward? And those were the same kind of people who were buying when I was making things with certain choices in my head. Like I wanted a story that belonged to the places that I came from, where I've lived, where I've learned. With NIFT, I used to travel to a lot of these far beyond craft clusters, which really nourished and cherished me in terms of being an artist, I feel. And I personally feel that the more I belong to that world, the more authentic I am in my storytelling. So far, I'm able to continue that dialogue forward and communicate with the people who are at the same threshold in life where they want to hear that story. I think that chain is not broken wherever they are in the world. And while we are doing that, we also have to accept that it comes with certain choices. So those choices will have to be personal, that you have to wash the clothes by hand, you will have to wear them a longer period of time, you will have to find your individual style statement to wear it and make it fashionable. The garment will not really change overnight for you. Render something in your everyday wear that will make it more fashionable for you to belong to a certain crowd and community in a different way. I think that kind of an eclectic individualism is what we look for when we make the kind of clothes that we want to make. The narrative, the back end, the process of making, the process of storytelling, the process of designing, and to be very aware, conscious, and honest about making certain choices which have to be progressive, which has to understand that it is a changed lifestyle today, the kind of lifestyle that I want to live in. The impact of me taking one flight from India to anywhere else in the world is far more, for me to send the goods out through FedEx or DHL is far more than the whole 10 process of creating that garment, whether I'm saying block printing, whether I'm saying handloom, or I'm saying natural fibers and textiles. So all this have to be kept in mind. I can't just brainwash people. I think the consumer has to be aware that this aspect of it is the brand's responsibility. Likewise, a big high street brand has to understand that this much is what I can contribute. We still want to make profits, and how much of it sustainability can be a part of. Maybe packaging is much more than making the product for us. Making 10, for example, the down jacket that we speak so much about from Uniqlo, it doesn't go anywhere. It's one standard design that doesn't go anywhere. You buy it once and it is for a lifetime. Well, I can't really think of another sustainable choice of product from a brand like that, that they can claim to be their innovation and offering in terms of sustainable design for the world that we live in today.
The whole social discourse about sustainability is that a lot of people have made choices to buy sustainable things, or to just because it feels nice to say it and it's the right thing to say. Am I making sense? So they're like, oh yeah, oh, where do you get that? Yeah, I got this from this brand, and it's sustainable, and it's a fashionable thing to say. This really it gives me a great kick when I hear people talk about it, because up until now, as you said, we grew up in a different kind of India where sustainability was something we sort of lived and breathed without knowing it. We would reuse things. I remember that even like the cartons in which like Brook Bond Red Label chai would come, like my nanny would take that paper carton and she would cut little strips of it, and the strips would be put in a glass in the kitchen, and that she would use that to light the gas flame from one to the other, instead of wasting another matchstick, or she would use those to light like the candlesticks around the house when there was no electricity, because she just didn't want to waste the matchsticks. And it would take nothing. Like anybody, in the house would just cut those strips up every time a new box of Brook Bond Red Label tea would be opened, and that tea would be dumped into a steel container. And it's in those smallest, like just saving a matchstick was such a natural part of our existence. Nobody spoke about how sustainable we are at that time. It's just what we did, or an old garment would be, passed on till it was tattered, and then it would still be a jhadan. And it's lovely to think about these nostalgic things, but I don't think we can reach for that culture again, because that culture is not going to come back.
Yeah.
So we may romanticize that as stories from our childhood, and they're beautiful where they stand. But today I feel there is a need to encourage the narrative where people feel cool about making the sustainable choice. That's one thing, because I don't believe that the right way is to see. Conversely, for a long time, people have been feeling cool about having the newest thing. Or having the new iconic bag, or the best new thing. So clearly, even then, there was a lot of noise being made about sustainability, responsible consumption. It's just now that in conjunction with global warming, in conjunction with horrifying images of landfills, sustainability has become central to the fashion conversation.
Yeah.
But before this, also people knew the idea of sustainable shopping, or that, let's say, the blanket statement that plastic is bad, which I do not believe for 1 second. There are many cases in which plastic is far more sustainable than relying on natural fibers.
100%, yeah.
So how do you think brands can really sort of make sustainability cool and make it a buzzword that people want to really jump in on, rather than people trying to quote unquote make those responsible choice, or dil pe patthar rakh ke we have to do the right thing. And that's that sort of like the forced philanthropy narrative gets very tired and very tiresome after a while, because ultimately, like, you can be sustainable.
Like I said, Varun, that's not a sustainable point of view to carry on.
Right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, somebody who wants to look glamorous at a party or a wedding, they're like, I may wear like tatters and khadi and some jute jhabla throughout my life, but tonight's my big night and I'm going to look like a red carpet queen. And how does sustainability come within that?
So, I think, first things, I wanted to actually also, I wanted to mention this when you said that sustainability is basically a choice, and it's kind of it comes with privilege. I personally feel that it has to do with being frugal, just living, making choices that are frugal, that you live your lifestyle in such a way that you think frugally, basically it's about that. And I think our parents were that for most of my life. I've seen my parents save things, everything, save literally everything. And it really reaches a point when you feel frustrated because it's not practical way to live. It's not practical, Like you said, one plastic ki balti can go the longest, it can really be in the household longest. Just about really believing in the concept of sustainability, not buying and throwing things away. Basically, it's about that. So not buy too much, not throw too much is the only basic, clear, simple understanding.
Are people ready for frugality again, do you think?
No, so the people who were not ready are never going to be ready. The people who were frugal will feel that, okay, it's fine. I can be comfortable talking about it and say, this was my dadi's, I'm wearing it today. So the people who always believed in it, and I kind of felt a sense of familiarity with being frugal because they've always seen that as a lifestyle choice, will not have to hide in the closet and say, I bought it yesterday and it's beautiful and I bought it from such and such designer. Even if they've literally, even they've really saved for about a year to buy that piece, are going to be happy to wear a
So let's take this to the people who don't, let's say, buy even designer wear. And these are people who are coming from households and a strata society who had no choice but to be frugal through their lives and through the generations, right? Today, we see that fashion and sort of fashion retail has a space for them where they can buy the coolest t-shirts and prints for at very low costs in these package deals and 3 packs and 5 packs. In a production way, that's not sustainable at all, because it's first, it's not a pure fiber. It's because that would increase the price.
Yeah.
It's coming packaged in plastic, because eco-friendly packaging would increase the price, and it is easily available on e-com throughout the country, and that's a major, like, an economic driver in the decisions that the ultimate brands have to make. These guys are not, that's a personal aspiration. They are not ready to be frugal anymore, and why should anyone expect them to be frugal? Because they're coming from a history of frugality where they've never had access to, easy access at least, to, I mean, they were not even in a place where they could confidently walk into a shop, or let alone a mall, because there are, of course, class structures, caste situations, whatnot. Now it's available online, it's available on their phone, they can order it at any time, and it's available very cheap. So how a very certain section of society choosing sustainability or frugality is, to me, a very small minority when it comes to the numbers game. And sustainability has to become a numbers game if it has to literally sustain itself, right? So what's the secret there, and how can like, let's say, brands start communicating on that? Or
I think personally, Varun, that one thing we all have to understand, that in today's time, the way we are living, the pandemic and everything, the changed weather situations, and the kind of, like 4 months we can't breathe in Delhi, 4 months where we have the heat is too much, 4 months we feel. So global warming is an immediate concern, and we have to attend to it. So many things, like I said, I was in conversation with this very senior professor from IIT, and he said things like, they should not be allowed. Certain things should not be allowed. For example, steel, which we know that has huge amount of carbon emission, manufacturing of steel. Why do we need steel utensils? Why can't we, in today's time and world, why can't we design another something, or why can't we put a tax on steel so that it can only be an expensively made, produced, whatever sort of so this, when it comes to another product. Likewise, it's about architecture. Likewise, it's about, like you said, food, packaging, delivery, buy local, sell local. So there's certain systems, and this has to come from the government. Now, I can only talk from the point of view of fashion, whether it is a big brand, mass brand that sells across the world, or it is a small maker like me. Now, my point of view is that if polyester made with a 20 rupees per meter sort of a yarn and making practice is only going to make it easy for a lot of mass brands to make, produce, and sell. So build taxes around it. Why is it cheap? Why something that is going to ruin the climate, the earth, the world, the consumer mindset, the whole economy, eventually, which is not going to add to anything except for that 5 minutes of whether or not I should have an extra burger when I've had enough. It's that kind of a fashion that you've had enough, but you still want to eat more, right?
So you're saying we penalize the practices that are creating problems?
That's what I'm saying. Whether it is building buildings, whether it is about how we travel, whether it is about household utensils, whether it is about food, certain things should be a big no-no. They should not be allowed. They should be taxed. There should be benefits for people who are manufacturing with better practices, and there should be taxes for certain things which are just not acceptable because they have reached the brink of being non-existent in the years to come. 20 years later, the world is not going to look the same for our children. So this has to come to a stop, and certain things have to, without the dialogue of I was brought up in such a way, so I need to see more. It has to stop. There is no way. It's not Netflix that you can watch whatever you want to. So it's not allowed. It's not provided for. You don't have a choice. I mean, now we've started talking about things like the saris, the shawls, the kapra, the pashmina. But this is how we live. They were expensive. They were bought once in a lifetime. They were cherished. They were carried forward. We still want to hold on to them. It is because there is a value of nostalgia. There is a value of a story that comes with that piece. Rotary printing, I can very easily do like more difficult, tedious prints which are refreshingly beautiful, and I can rotary print it in so many mills around Gurgaon instead of getting my blocks made in Pethapur, in Gujarat, doing the artwork here, doing the art separation here, sending it to Petapur, getting the blocks made, then doing the color separation and the printing explorations in the studio, and then going into bulk printing, where whether I'm printing 5 garments or 50, the process is the same. It's so much easier to go into rotary print. But I make that choice for my brand because I want to believe in it. Because obviously, like I said, that that storytelling, the part of authenticity of storytelling and beauty, and bringing it together and talking to the audience that wants to hear me is really my side. That's my share in the whole fashion spectrum. And gradually that influence is going to go bigger, but it is going to go bigger with, like you said, that the masses that are buying buy two get two, perhaps, that this narrative has to go there. I have tried to bridge the gap several times and I've failed. I admit it. It's not an easy gap to really, access. So much of it is also going to be corporate will, so much of it is also going to be government will, so much of it is going to come from what is the kind of practical policies that we are going to see going forward that is going to make easier for a maker like me to scale up, and difficult for a maker like that to go beyond what they expect from by influencing a certain consumer. My country or the people that I work with need me to be sustainable economically for more livelihoods and more people than it needs me to be. I have to be authentic, I have to be fair, and I have to speak the story of sustainability far and wide wherever I have an audience. Yet at the same time, I think from me, they need me to sustain the livelihoods of the people that I work with. That's a clear indication from day one. It is absolutely clear and understandable between me and the people that I work with. Season after season, they're going to reach out to me and say, "Kya kaam hai agle 4 mahine ke liye?" Then I'm not competing. Somebody else, somewhere else, sitting somewhere else in the world might say that I have made it with the best of best indigo with 3 artisans in a place like one remote village in Kutch, and therefore I'm selling it at the price that I'm selling it at. I cannot do that. I really cannot do that, because if I say that this is the purest kind of indigo that I'm making in Kutch and I'm going to look for that 3 audience, what is the craftsman going to do? What is the artisan going to do while I sell those 3 pieces? I have to make it fair for them and us. Like, I want to sit in AC, I want to have, I want to grow my brand. They want to get 3 good square meals a day, a decent pakka ghar. They want to send their children to a good school. Fair enough. Growth is desired by everybody in the world,
Absolutely.
And can we make art cheap? So, nahi to, matlab, sustainable.
That's the crux of the question, I think, and I think this for me at least, this conversation has given me a lot to think about, and there's a definitely a push that's required on both sides, whether it's the individual or the brands. And I think the good thing is that there is a communication out there and there's a discourse building out there, and a lot of people are creatively utilizing it. So as you said, whoever's doing whatever right now is good news. And,
right now, all noise is good noise, so long as we keep the ball up. Keep the ball up, I think it's a good time to be talking about sustainability today. And in the end, I think it will settle. We'll reach a place where it will be one united voice. We'll be heard where it has to be heard, Like, Greta, perhaps, how dare you? We'll reach there soon, and we will talk about it fashionably. We'll talk about it with beauty, and we don't want to be apologetic about it. We don't want to be humble about it. We don't want to say,
it should be a celebration rather than it should. I mean, there is a fatigue in every hard won victory.
And different points of view, Varun. Like, I feel that another designer who's working with perhaps sequins and plastic waste and things and stuff is as relevant to this conversation as much as I am.
Absolutely.
But then to say that I'm putting in almost 120 hours of just one person, one artisan sitting and making this product, and therefore I'm asking for a value for this product, because I think that it is a thing of beauty and it's not going to be destroyed tomorrow. If a certain brand from certain place across the world, just because they had given fashion to a war-torn world, has its place in the museums across the world, so should we.
Thank you so much, Rina. And thank you, the KNMA Museum of Art, for allowing us to have this beautiful conversation together.
Yes, I'm so glad I was here, and I'm glad that I was talking to you, Varun. Thank you to KNMA Museum of Art.